You're listening to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Hello, everyone. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where borders collide, where the gloves are off, where filters are removed, where we tell you exactly what we think about the news, politics, and religion. The Wayward Atheist Podcast is dedicated to free thought, reason, and the pursuit of truth. You can follow us on Twitter at Wayward Atheist, on Spreaker, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Real quick, before I introduce the show tonight, I just wanted to give everybody a big thanks. The people that enjoy the show, the people that hate the show, everybody that's pressed play. We hit over 15,000 listens in about 6 months, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Big thanks to everybody. Yeah, I appreciate the comments too that are coming in now. At least we're getting more interaction, which is awesome. Good or bad, whatever. Okay, well, let's get into the show.
I'm Corey from the Brainstorm Podcast, and you're listening to the Wayward Atheists.
Hello, and welcome to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. I'm Dave, a.k.a. the Great White North.
I'm Big Black Guy Dave.
I'm Ed, the Everyday Atheist.
Tonight we are joined by...
Dustin Dark.
Who's not that dark.
No. Thanks for having me back, though, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, man. So how was your week, guys? We'll start with David.
My week was great.
That's it?
Yeah.
You've lost your ability to speak.
Oh, I have nothing else to really say.
How was your piece? How was your piece coming along? And I don't mean the big black one between your legs.
It's going great. There's a lot of hard work. It's very intricate and detailed, and I'm using vocal fry.
Yeah,
it's going great.
And how much, percentage wise, how much is completed?
70%, I would say.
Oh shit! I thought you would have been at like 90. How many more months?
2 more months, let's say.
Okay. Well, you got time.
Yeah, I have some time.
Yeah, right on.
And
no wonder why you ditched us.
And you forget he's a musical genius, right? So.
Yeah, well, he's creative anyways. I don't know about that.
That's about you, Dave. How are you?
Me? Oh, man. I am... I had to listen to some music before we started this podcast because I was listening to Sam Harris try to tactfully explain truth to Jordan Peterson, and he just wouldn't budge even when he knew he was wrong or he just still wouldn't budge on it. And like the concepts that they're talking about, for somebody that hasn't thought about their concepts, you have to really think about it, and it just zapped all creativity out of me listening to those two guys drone on and on. Like, it would have been nice if it was like 4 topics or 5 topics, but the fact that they just got bogged down in truths because Jordan wouldn't budge on things that he clearly should have. I think he just didn't want to admit that he I don't know. It zapped me. But other than that, I was at home I was off most of the week, and I was alone with the boys today for the first time in a long time. That's always fucking hectic, trying to take care of those two. And that's about it.
How's Humphrey's leg doing?
Oh, yeah, his back ankle's still swollen, but his allergies are going away, so he's not licking at shit as much. I gotta watch to see where he's banging it because the vet says that he's repeatedly banging it. But I did put him on a diet, and he's down 9 pounds, so he went from 124 to 115.
Sweet.
Another 5 pounds. He can't go down any more than that. Just the type of dog he is. He's got to be around 110.
No, yeah, he's a big boy.
Yeah, for sure. And Edward, how was your week?
Up until last night, it was perfect. It was a monster freaking snowstorm. We didn't get much of the snow that they were calling for, but the snow we got was mixed with rain, so it was pretty heavy and sporadic power outages throughout the night. It was a bitch to go anywhere because they don't plow our roads properly. in my community, so it's like a nightmare. I had a snow drift today, picking up my wife, and I just about wiped out.
Do you find that since the early '90s they stopped plowing the side streets right away? Like, you remember they used to plow everything straight away, but now they leave the side streets. So I was doing a job maybe 11 minutes away from my house. They had 8 inches of ice on the fucking road because of that big ice storm we had.
Oh yeah.
They didn't fucking plow it.
And
they're like, if you see ice, call us and we'll come and take care of it. You call them, they never fucking come.
Yeah, no, man. My community, between my community and the next community, is night and day. They almost had bare pavement, and we had 4 fucking feet of snow on our road.
That's because they know you live there.
That's it. They fucking me over. That's what it is. But other than that, I had a great week.
Right on. And Dustin, what have you been up to?
Well, mostly I've been enjoying the 60, 70 degree Alabama winter that we have here. That's been real nice. It's been real nice. I walked to work today in a t-shirt, some shorts, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Rub it.
You know you're a cunt, right?
I like to think that I am. I aspire to be a cunt one day.
Actually, it's been unseasonably warm here for more than a week and raining every day, and they had to close down the world's longest skating rink.
It's actually been unseasonably warm here. It's been the hottest month on record in Tuscaloosa every month since I moved here a year and a half ago almost. And we're also getting snow from time to time, which is not typical for us. We've had snow probably 4 of the last 6 years, which is very odd for us.
And what do you call snow in your neck of the woods? Half inch?
Oh yeah. No. If it
He's
snows,
gonna say frozen water.
Yeah, right. if it falls from the sky and it looks white, we'll call it snow, man. No, this actually stuck. Sticking snow and getting snow is 2 different things for us. This actually stuck, and we got maybe a half inch. And I'll have you know that thousands of people called in late for work or just didn't show up at all, and school shut down. And well, we don't have snow plows. We don't have snow tires for sale. We have zero experience.
Yeah, but it's a half inch.
It's not the depth of the snow. It's the sheets of ice that we've never driven on before.
Okay.
And here's the thing, I might be able to go out and drive in the snow just fine. Probably not. But there's, 3 other million people out there that don't know how to drive in it, that'll slam into you. So, and also in Alabama, if they declare an emergency because of winter weather and you drive your vehicle, it's not covered by your insurance. It's on you.
Oh.
Well, that's interesting.
Because people here have no experience.
Snow
We don't have salt trucks. We don't have sand trucks. We don't have plows or anything like that. They shut down when it snows here out of safety issues.
Crazy. It's like when I was living in Victoria, BC, the first time it snowed when I was there, because they get snow twice a year or whatever. It was like the fucking aliens were landing. Like Dustin said, nobody was going to work. I was flying around. I went to work, and I was working in the shipyards on the Navy base, and fucking security wasn't there. Nobody was fucking there. Me and the foreman was from Saskatoon, to be exact. It was me and him. And then it was we were like, oh, well, I'll just fucking go home since nobody's here. The gate was locked, everything. We were the only footprints going up.
Jeez.
Right before predicted snow shows up, you won't be able to find any bread, milk, or batteries at any of the stores here. It's all gone. It's all gone.
Well, that's
that would
here.
be like if we were having a fucking hurricane or a tornado here.
Well,
that would happen.
We got when it calls for a major snowstorm here, we're talking feet of snow. Then it gets taken over by everybody. Grocery stores get cleaned, but not for half an inch. But you calling to work saying that you had a half inch of snow and you're not coming into work, they say, well, see ya, bye.
I've never seen enough snow in my life that the corner stores are closed, though.
No. And my wife works on a corner store.
Max is always open. You can be snow up to your waist. You're dredging through it. You get to the corner store. They're always open.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah. At least you can get your milk and shit from there.
If they have it. Anyway,
We'll get into the show now. So we're back for part 2 of our series. It's going to have 3 parts, and tonight it's going to be the rise of the far left. And when we speak in terms of far left, we mean communism and violent socialists, not what most Americans or what Jordan Peterson call radical left. We mean like real far left stuff, not social democrats or liberals.
Yeah.
Because apparently fucking Hillary Clinton is far left in the U.S.
Holy shit.
Or that's at least what the right is complaining, what the Republicans have been saying.
No,
and Bernie Sanders is a communist. So she's a socialist and Bernie Sanders is a communist.
Most of the people on the left that I know in America would say that Hillary Clinton is like a centrist Democrat. She's not on the left at all. She would be almost like a neocon from 20 years ago.
And in Canada, we call her a Republican.
Yeah.
Fair.
When we started our old show, had said that, that she was a right-wing Republican. And I took a bunch of heat from the other people that were on the show. David and Ed weren't on the show yet, but I took heat from them saying it. But like from the outside looking in, when you have like actual, I shouldn't say actual left parties, but you have more than one party to vote for. So you grow up with an understanding of 4 or 5 different political ideologies. Hillary Clinton's viewpoints look awfully familiar to the right.
Yeah, like when you look at her candidacy in the States, she's more center right than she is anywhere near center left. She's well underway to being a righty.
She would fit in perfectly in the Conservative Party here.
Yeah.
Her and Harper.
Her and Harper, yeah.
Okay, well, we're back with our second installment of our 3-part series, and tonight we're going to be talking about the far left. And when we speak about the far left, we mean like communism or violent socialism beyond Marxism, we'll say.
Like left terrorism, basically.
Yeah.
And we're not just crazy vegans, right?
Not just crazy vegans. No. And not like, not just Tumblr triggered people. We're talking about like in all seriousness, we're talking about some serious people, like even supremacists that are on the left. So I know it's a funny thing to say, but there is.
All right. So the first group we're going to talk about tonight is the communists. Canada is not immune to the communist bug. We have our own Communist Party of Canada. And the Communist Party of Canada is the second oldest party after the Liberal Party of Canada. In 1993, it was deregistered and its assets seized, forcing it to begin 13-year battle to maintain its registration as a party within Canada. Basically, our Communist Party is still functioning, but it's kind of reduced, and it was founded in 1921.
And does it give a reason for them being like they just didn't get a seat, or?
Well, they didn't get a seat, and as you know, we're not getting a seat. You don't get any money to finance your party in Canada. How it began was it was an illegal party in rural areas of the country. That's where its thrust of the party came from. But there were some also criminal elements to it.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Do you know if during the period in the States where communism was banned, like the MacArthur era, do you know if Canada had that similar?
It doesn't appear to be. There was no reference that it was diminished. However, I think that stigma went worldwide, except for in communist areas. So even though there was the Communist Party, it was downplayed compared to what it was in the States.
I find it really funny that we didn't ban it, or we didn't at least put a lot more pressure on that party during the Cold War.
I think it's because we weren't as invested as as the United States was in the Cold War setting as much. But
we did play a role in it, and we were part of it.
The Communist Party still at that time is not very big, so it's
not very big.
So even then, it wasn't huge.
We were a target for Russia. So I would think that we would try to.
Well, of course.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, I don't think that it was large enough to cause anybody concern.
Okay. Carry on.
So basically, beyond the founding of the party, they basically broke into two camps. You had the Leon Trotskyists, and then the other faction was the Lenin Stalin. And the difference between those is very, very stark if you know anything about communism. Leon Trotsky camp were less violent on a global sphere, especially in Canada, but they did a lot of things within Canada, especially when it came to working unions. It helped formed many unions here in the country, which helped make great strides in workers' health and benefits. So there was benefits from having this. However, the Stalinists were squashed almost to non-existence, and they did nothing in the country and were basically kicked out of the country after that.
Well, yeah, it makes sense to try to squash a party that is following somebody that is responsible for more than 100 million deaths.
Right. So
right? Like
the party had a mass rally in Maple Leaf Gardens. The total number of people was 17,000 supporters, and that was in 1931.
Do you think they have 17,000 supporters today?
No, I'd say for the Communist Party in particular, they don't give exact numbers here, but my estimate is less than 1,500.
Really, less than 1,500 for the entire country?
It's pretty much defunct as a party. It doesn't have enough finances to keep it going as a legitimate party to put itself on the ballot. So it's pretty much defunct. But there are some diehards that still call themselves communists and still have the communist card.
Now, do you think that there's maybe more support for that party inside the universities and like that aren't necessarily a part of it? So you would say that active members of it, there's 1,500, but you would have to guess that support of the party itself ranges somewhere around 50,000?
No, I don't, because we have to split it up because many universities are Marxists, not communists. So when you think about communists, you're thinking about the political extreme, like the political functionality, whereas Marxist, which is the theoretical embodiment of it. You know what I mean? It's like, here's the principles by which so yes, your number is about 50,000 is right when it comes to Marxists, but when you comes to communists, you're getting really low. Okay.
Any questions, Dustin?
Can you lay the entire, and this is being nitpicky, but you asked me if I have a question, the 100 million deaths from communism, that's not all at Stalin's feet, right? Like you have Mao and then you have some in Cuba and
no, that's
Stalin.
That's all Stalin?
Between 60 and 100 million people under Stalin.
Okay, yeah, but okay, all right.
Not including the wars.
The 60, I've heard 75. Like I'd never heard the 100 million quoted under Stalin himself before. So
we can't have an exact.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah,
we don't know an exact. So there's a range that, and I've heard as high as 150. So different historians will place it in a range, but I myself am not a historian, but I'm comfortable with saying 100. Like like the difference between 75 and 100 when you're talking about millions of people is not that much, right?
As Stalin would say, it's a statistic. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason why we can't really accurately count the numbers is not just he didn't actually actively shoot 100 million people or 60 million people. So many of these people were starved to death based on his policies, and many of them were killed
or worked to death.
So you have the number is so vast you can't grasp it because there's no one there doing body counts one by one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What you're saying is they're not. What you're saying is they're not as meticulous as record keepers as the Nazis were. They didn't literally put a check down every time someone fell dead.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they really cared. Right.
Fair. All right.
Like, do you know what the Road of Bones is, Dustin?
No. I off the top of my head, I don't know what the Road of Bones is.
So I don't know why he wanted this road built up in Siberia, but he wanted this road built up in Siberia, and he just sent hundreds of thousands of people to build these roads, and he worked them until they died, and their bones are laid in the road, and that's why they call it the Road of Bones, is because of the amount of people that dropped dead doing this.
And you have to understand, Stalin didn't care who you were. when it came to killing. He killed members of his own family because he thought they were going to overtake him. He was paranoid at that point, right? So
he immediately killed anybody that supported Lenin as soon as he took office, right? Like any of the, like, it's not even like Lenin was a threat at that point. He just decided that anybody that had been previously that could possibly take control over him, he just executed them all straight away.
Well, I mean, he's so thorough that Leon Trotsky, which the modern day communist people more favor as a leader, he was so meticulous that 40 years after he was exiled from Russia, he got an ice pick in the back of his head. So, I mean, he didn't want him coming back. So
yeah,
he's pretty thorough.
I can't believe that there's still people, and I told Dave that I knew people that were Stalin fans or really supported communism, and around my age in my area, he really couldn't believe it, and it is hard to believe. John, you fuck if you're listening, stop. Yeah. Anyway,
so I've looked into what you were saying about that, Dustin, about some millennials, and I think the issue here is that they think that it's propaganda when people are speaking about Joseph Stalin like we are. They don't actually think that this happened. The trouble is that there's video evidence, there's historical evidence. There's ways of knowing whether or not. So even if you say it wasn't 150, even if you say it wasn't 100 million, I'll even give you that it wasn't 60. Even if it's just 30 million people, it's still, and in the ways that they died, it's still something that you should, and excuse me, these are children that have grown up in the West, and they've grown up in a free society, and maybe some of them haven't risen to the place in a capitalist society that they feel is fair or that they think that they should have got to, and they look at the communist ideal as this great utopian that they're going to live in, and they're going to work, and they're going to be treated fairly, and they're going to have their necessities met. When reality is, what happens when you're working and the necessities aren't being met, but you still have to work? What happens when the bread line runs out, but you still have to go to the factory because the state is more important than the people? Because that's what communism leads to. It's different than socialism in that way, right? It's for the state instead of necessarily for the people when you have a dictator, because communism necessarily leads to a dictator.
Right.
You can't have democratic communism. It doesn't work.
And in that, the difference between Marxism and just on an overt difference is that Marxism is a critique on capitalism. It critiques the very ideas of how urban people are treated under the capitalist system of the 19th century, by the way. And whereas communism is a political mixture of Marxist principles and religious ideology. So you graft the two of them together, and it's a deadly cocktail.
Yeah, well, you treat the state as the religion and the dictator as the deity, basically.
Yeah.
How that goes. And you can see it in action in North Korea today.
And remember,
you don't have to be 40 as fuck like me to remember the Soviet Union. You can just look at North Korea.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to realize that communism is deadly in many respects, because what it states on paper is that the collective good is the best for everybody. So basically everybody's needs are met, but not they're only met to the barest minimum. Do you know what I mean? It's not, and it's dangerous in the fact that you lose your freedom for that. You trade it off.
Yeah, you can't criticize the government. Anything that is against the state is outlawed. So, freedom, basically. We have a monument in Ottawa that is dedicated to all the victims of communism, and I don't know if our prime minister's visited it or not, but he probably should, the way that he wrote that love letter to fucking Fidel Castro, because I'm sure the names of the Cubans are on that monument as well.
And remember, Stalinism is the product that was transplanted to all the rest of the major communist regimes. So it's not like, as some people would say, Marxism. It is Stalinism, communism, export. So it's not Marxism, the principle or the theory. It's the actual political, crazy, right wing or left wing version of Marxism.
And I would say with Stalin, it's a shame that when we realized that he was putting that wall up that, cut Europe off and cut East and West Germany, that we didn't stay the course and march through and tackle Russia after that, because they weren't a true ally. They were on Germany's side, then they were on our side. The only reason why they started fighting Germany is because Germany started fighting them. Had Germany not started fighting them, they would have never fought. They would have fought against us. And I just think that if you were truly going to free Europe from the boot of tyranny, then the move should have been to move into East Germany once you realized that Stalin was putting those walls up.
And if you want to know what it's like to live under a communist regime, have you ever seen the movie V for Vendetta?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember how?
I love that movie. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember how they had people listening in on your conversations? They had what was it? The BTM news channel that made up news to placate. That is exactly how Russia was and communist regimes are.
And Cuba.
Yeah, they're set up. And you had people that would black bag you and haul you away if you were against the state. So this is a real life version of a movie, and people support this. It's crazy. And they had people.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
They had actual people turning in their fellow citizens to get rewards and to make their life a little better. And so you don't know where this information comes from. So you just, at that point, your ability to think rationally ends. You just go with the party line because you don't know what is going to happen. You piss the wrong person off, you could end up in a black bag and gone. You know what I mean? This is real life.
Well, what happens when your country starts starving and you're cut off from the rest of the world's economy because you don't have trade agreements with them, like in communist Russia, and you saw the breakdown of it, and look at what's happening in North Korea. But they had to tell people in Russia not to eat their children because they were so hungry.
Chicken.
Yeah. Well,
so what
because
is
they're all atheists.
So how do we tie this back to the current groups that are
Well, we're gonna jump into the
well, I mean, the current threat of modern communism doesn't come from communist states. We don't have communist China, which is becoming more capitalistic than capitalistic countries. So it's got some flavor of communism mixed with capitalism, which is a strange cocktail. But the threat is that there's these millennial groups, I'll say millennials at this point, that are radicalizing around a communist manifesto, not Marx's book, but I'm talking about a communist type ideology, and are becoming militant about it. And they're actually combating the right, fighting the right. And so we have physically. So you have branching off that there are other groups similar. They're all left leaning, but are highly violent. And you have outbreaks across, not in Canada, which is good, but you have it in Europe, and you also have it in various other places as a pushback against the right wing. And it's becoming a really volatile cocktail.
Yeah, and I would say like after Dustin had told me that there were, people that were for Stalin, I looked into it, and there's Facebook groups. You look it up on Facebook, and their fucking picture of the group is fucking Joseph Stalin. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and some of it's supposed to be like ironic or kind of a joke, but some of it's not. And one thing that I found interested, and I'm kind of a troll in that I'll go into groups and then I will disagree with them and have conversations. Like, I'm not one of those kill yourself people, but those groups, you can't even troll them. You disagree once, you get 3 sentences in, and they fucking ban you. They send you right to the gulag. It's really Well,
it kind of fits their narrative, right?
It really does. And I say that too. Right before I'm gone. Like, well, off to the gulag I go.
But a modern thing that's coming up is, and it happens on the right as well, but it really picks up in the left for some reason, is revisionist history, where they go back through history and try to rewrite it to fit a narrative that they think should have. This is the way it should have happened, but this is how the winners have changed it. Because you hear that line, the winners write history, right? So
yeah, well, I would say that maybe now it's more the left, but if you look back throughout history, it's kind of been the right that is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It used to be a tool of the left. The right, and it now has become the favorite tool of the left to try to. I don't know. It's almost like they want to twist Western society. And that's one of the things that they really want to fuck with, is the concept of Western modern society. They want to overthrow it and turn it into...
Well, what do they want to replace it with communism?
Yeah, an actual communist state.
Because we've already seen that shit doesn't work, right? Like, we know that communism fails. Like, you say nothing fails like prayer. Well, nothing fails in a political scheme like communism.
Right.
Because you have resentment within the workers because one worker may be working harder than the other. You have no ingenuity because there's no incentive for anybody to engineer anything. You have an oppressed people because the regime is keeping you suppressed and not allowing you to have freedom of speech, freedom of idea, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. And then, you have the regime killing people. So I just don't, it doesn't, like, why would you, like, I know, like, the West isn't perfect, but if you can give me a better example of a civilization that's existed, I'm willing to hear you out. I think you're wrong, but I'll try to hear you out.
What I hear a lot in my trollings is not necessarily that it should be replaced with communism, but there's this idea that maybe there's something better, and until we kind of break down what we have, we can't try something new. And I really don't think these people understand how fragile democracy is, and a liberal democracy where people can do what the fuck they want, and it's not a mob rule. It's a very fragile thing. There's a reason it hasn't been echoed throughout our history. There's these little pockets of people being able to control their own government and it not coming into some kind of massive oppression. So I don't know. And I think you're kind of right into they're just disenchanted. It didn't turn out better for them a lot of the times.
I would say this as well, is that, like, Western civilization is an evolving thing. It is going to get better. It has gotten better. If you look at it from the ground up, from the very beginning, even look at it 1960s to today, it gets better all the time. It's self-correcting all the time.
It's in your research, do you have some examples of some extreme left groups that engage in this revisionist?
Yeah, not particularly a group. There is an individual, I won't say his name because I'm not going to give him credit for anything, because of the work he's doing. But what he's doing right now is, he's from Sweden. He's a bus driver. People probably know who he is if they Google him on YouTube or search him on YouTube.
This is the Stalin fan.
He's a Stalin fan. He actually redid some of the major work from historians and basically rewrote it that Stalin was the savior of Russian people and not a thorn in the side that wanted to be overthrown.
And also the number of deaths, he attributed a lot less and said that it wasn't necessarily Stalin's fault. Right?
No, he's basically saying he inherited from the czars. This was the czars, and in some ways he is correct. The czars created a massive amount of uneducated, servile, peasant groups throughout Russia, and that they did institute factory work and urbanize people. But it was only because of the communist regime that was coming up, that made the Tsar put in certain rules which made it worse. But anyway, without getting into much into the Russian Revolution, but he has really tried, and he's got a huge following, in many countries. And so, he's really changed the perspective, let's say, and the numbers and events we know took place. He's changed them completely.
Well, they do it with Hitler, so why not do it? You might as well do it with Stalin too, eh?
Yeah, but I mean, at least one of the things that we always said about the left was that it never revised its history. As ugly as it was, we don't revise our history. And now that's becoming the trend of the 21st century is revision, right?
All right. Okay, well, let's move on. We'll move into Europe. I'll give you guys any last thought. Anybody have a last thought on communism itself or communism in the West?
It's a defunct political ideology that needs to remain in the dust of humanity. It's gone. It should remain gone. It should not be revitalized.
And I will say, if you doubt that communism is a really, really fucking bad idea, I suggest you find any documentary that you can on North Korea and have a watch. And if you come away from that thinking that communism is a good idea, go fuck yourself.
Just to that note, Dave, what Stalin started after Lenin, North Korea perfected. So the absolute brainless, and I mean brainless because they're stupid. I mean absolutely no freedom. These people worship the dear leader for every morsel. They're starving to death. They have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world. It's a sad state of affairs.
And what would you gentlemen say to the oft-repeated cliche of communism was just never implemented correctly?
What does that even mean? First,
here I'll take it. So, what they're saying when they're saying that is Marxism was never implemented properly. They're not saying communism, and you have to draw the distinction between the two, right? Because one is for state, one is for people. Communism has a dictator. So in theory, when they talk about a utopian society, everybody's supposed to be equal. Well, as soon as you have somebody that has political power over you, that's no longer an equal society. It's no longer egalitarianism in the sense, because then you have the ability to, lend favors to people. So the people that are directly underneath the dictator will receive more than, the mechanic down the street. So you can't implement it properly when there necessarily has to be somebody running the show. Somebody's going to have power over you.
And the fact that they think that Marxism and communism are the same thing is just asinine. Although Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, what turned out to be what we call communism today, he would have turned over in his grave over it. It would have never been something he would approve of. It was his whole thing was a critique on 19th century capitalism. That's it. And people need to understand that that's what it was. It's not a great movement. He never meant for this to be implemented into real society, because especially in fucking Russia, he thought if anywhere it would have been implemented, it would have been in Germany, where a highly sophisticated, industrialized nation would have implemented it naturally, not forcibly.
And that's not to say that I don't have problems with Marxism.
No, that's right.
Because I do. I wouldn't want to live in a Marxist society either.
And I don't think that it would really work. It's the idea.
I don't think so either.
The idea of it was just a critique. And you can look at his critique. Some of the stuff he says is absolutely positively bang on. But again, it's for a time and place that no longer exists. And to say that that's what we're going to implement is retarded.
In this segment, we're going to be talking about a socialist party. We're going to be talking about the African Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement.
The Uhuru movement is a radical socialist movement centered on the theory of African internationalism, which basically provides a historical material explanation for the social and economic conditions of African people, whether they live in Africa or worldwide. And basically the movement is led by the African People's Socialist Party, or the APSP, and it's led by Omali. If I mispronounce his name, I apologize. Last name is Yashitila, and he founded the movement in 1972. Basically, it is for black members only, and they do not adhere to any other identities. They consider themselves like if they're not African Americans, they're just Africans, because they believe that American part is only given to them because of colonialism and enslavement. They consider themselves to be dispersed from the African nation, and so they basically want to collect all blacks around the world under one banner.
Regardless of what country that they're living in. So if you have a pocket of the African socialists living in Canada, you have a pocket of the African socialists living in America. They want those blacks living under those rules and not paying taxes to the said government that they're living in.
Right, because they believe that it's that's a type of slavery that they're doing.
And they're a black supremacist group.
Yeah, they are indeed. Their political views are they believe in African internationalism, and they hold capitalism as an imperialistic development at its highest stage. And so they believe that modern capitalism is the dominant oppressive condition. And so they theorize that if we used Lenin's policies, not Stalin's, but Lenin's in particular, that the world would be a better world. This major group breaks down into many subgroups, but the Uhuru movement leads them all, or the African People's Socialist Party is the parent group, but we're going to get into their daughter group in the United States in particular.
There's two reasons why I wanted to talk about the African Socialist Party, and specifically about the American Party. It's their platform that they're putting out, which sounds more like a list of demands, and one of the leaders. YouTubers will know this person as Black Hitler, but his name is Ghazi Kodzo. Kodzo, I think that's how you pronounce it. Kodzo, and for you Americans, ZO. This person is highly racist, highly volatile. When the handicapped person was kidnapped by the four individuals in Chicago, beaten, tortured, held captive for 48 hours, Ghazi got on YouTube and basically, said that it was good that it happened and that we should expect more of this to happen to white people, and is fond of calling white people toilet seats because of our skin color matches toilet seats.
Toilet seat complected
Yeah, toilet seat complected. So
individuals.
Individuals. That is why I wanted to talk about this group.
Aquila, y'all. So, Uhuru, my name is Gazi Kudzo, and I am a leader in the African People's Socialist Party. And this over here, this male assassin, toilet seat complexion individual, is actually my comrade. Oh, I got praise, right? He's my comrade, and his name is
Jesse,
and he is
National Chair of Uhuru Solidarity Movement.
Uhuru. So, Jesse, have you heard some of my people kidnapped one of your people, put him in a tub and beat him up a little bit? You know, they scraped him up a little bit, tied him, went on live stream and stuff about it. Have you heard about it?
I did. I heard about it.
Crazy, right? But actually it's not so crazy since, you know, your people built an entire capitalist, imperialist society on top of my people. You know, you want to talk about kidnapping and torture. Can we talk about the almost 700 years of kidnapping and torture of African people? The reason why I'm here speaking English in this fluent white girl tongue right now, is because my people, was kidnapped and tortured and was put into this system, okay?
So I'm going to get into the platform, and then you guys can judge for yourself whether. And a few of them, you know, they read nice, and I do actually agree with a couple of them. Like the first one I'm about to read. We want peace, dignity, and the right to build a prosperous life through our own labor and in our own interests. Now, I can completely get behind that. We want the rights to economic development and creative and productive employment which promote the needs and well-being of our entire people. Now, I would say our entire people is every citizen in the United States. They don't necessarily think so, but that's good. Now, here's where we start to get into some fuckery. We want an end to all local, state, federal, and other taxation of black people by the U.S. government and any of its agencies. So basically, they want to reap the benefits of living in an American society with other races in a multicultural country, but they don't want to pay any taxes to live there. We want the right to free speech and political association, a guarantee of the right to work for the betterment and emancipation of black people without fear of political imprisonment and loss of life and limb and livelihood. I would argue that you have those things given to you by the government. Whether or not they're implemented on an individual basis, there's arguments to be had, but I would argue that those rights that you specifically are asking for are already afforded to you. We want the right to international political and economic association with Africans and all other peoples anywhere on the face of the earth. I would argue that you already have that right as well.
But I think, David, what they're asking for is to be able to do that as a sovereign people. Not
okay, but that's not how reality works.
No, I know, but that's what they're asking for.
We want the immediate and unconditional release of all, not innocent, of all black people who are presently locked down in U.S. prisons. You want to release criminals. It's like, no, like just not all white people are fucking good or innocent or whatever. Like there's assholes in all races. So basically what you're saying is you want criminals released. We want complete amnesty for all political prisoners and prisoners of war from U.S. prisons or their immediate release to any friendly country which will accept them and give them political asylum. Again, you want to release Boko Haram, if there's any Boko Haram in U.S. prisons or in any of her allies' prisons. That's just crazy. It's nonsense. We want the immediate withdrawal. And I want to talk about this one after I read this. I want to have a discussion about this. We want the immediate withdrawal of the U.S. police from our oppressed and exploited communities. In Chicago, they've done this. They've scaled back their policing. There is unprecedented murder happening in those neighborhoods. And it's not happening in the upscale neighborhoods. It's happening in the lower scale neighborhoods where the police have drawn back. The murder rate has gone through the roof. The drug dealing has gone through the roof. Property crime has gone through the roof. Why the fuck would you not want police presence in in these neighborhoods. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
I think they see them as I'm not justified in any regard, but I think they see them as enforcement of the state and attacking them on a political basis instead of actually policing. That's how they look at it.
But they're looking at this. They're looking at this from the wrong spectrum. They're looking at it as a political thing when they need to be looking at it as a community thing. Like the fact is that these areas have more crime than other areas.
Yeah.
Why they have more? Hang on, let me finish. Why those areas have more crime? That's where the discussion needs to be had. But pulling the police out is exasperating the issue instead of fixing it. So the police aren't social workers, right? The police are there to stop crime or, like to put pressure on the gangs that are in the area so that they're not out there just freely selling drugs out in public. So if you want to actually fix the social problem behind why these areas have more crimes, that is a social work area, not a policing area. Police are there to stop crimes, solve crimes. That's it. You can't expect them to be social workers.
No, and true. And second of all, they disregard any African American police officers, and in fact, police chiefs and, judges, lawyers, everybody that takes place in the political justice system that is African American. So you're not just many of these police officers live in the same communities that they're being pulled out from because of the fact that they want them gone. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I just find this one particularly dangerous because those areas are that have higher crime rates. There's no denying that. They actually do. Why they have higher crime rates, that's the discussion to be had, not the fact that they have higher crime rates. Go ahead, Dustin.
Okay, so I'm not Black, which I don't think matters to this discussion, but I am from a one of these neighborhoods they're talking about, from a Black neighborhood. I'm from, for anyone that wants to check behind me here, I'm from the west side of Birmingham, from a town called Wylam, Inslee, Fairfield, a little tri-town area where everything has fallen apart and crime has taken over everything. My tiny failed town of Wylam had its own gang, the Wylam Boys, and they had like WB tattoos that they all had, like, the Warner Brothers company. And they're bold to the point that the heroin dealer spray paints his number on, 4 foot, tall across the side of the car wash because he doesn't give a fuck. And taking the police from these communities is I think the worst idea possible. And I've had problems with police. I've had a lot of problems myself. I've been falsely arrested a couple times. But if you really want the first thing that they talked about, and maybe it's the second, whatever, if you really want that ability to build your own economic interest through your own labor, right? You cannot build a business or an economy in a neighborhood like that, right? There's only 2 businesses left. And one of them stopped taking cards. Somebody showed up with a truck and hooked the chain up to the front door and ripped it off, and then wrapped it around the ATM inside and took it. So now it's cash only. Like that's what a lot of towns, a lot of cities in America are dealing with. And it's really crazy that they just take away the police and it's going to get better. You're fucking crazy.
Well, I mean, large businesses that would be normally in a community like that shut down because they can't deal with the crime and the constant loss that they're taking. So they pull out, and what's left behind is overly priced items, and you might have to travel to another community to get basic needs like groceries. And I mean, if you're on a really limited budget, say if you're on food stamps, for instance, you're paying, if you go to a place called the convenience store, that's your for your milk and products, it's going to be twice as much. We've heard other people talk about that before. And this all stems from a simple thing that where less police are involved, crime is able to go rampant up. And so all these businesses close down. And don't we want our children to be safe? Period. I don't care about what else happens. Those children deserve to have a safety and security. They deserve to have the right to go to big stores to get groceries. They have the right to grow up in a community that is safe. And removing police jeopardizes their safety constantly.
Okay. That's right. But before we move on, to agree with you, Ed, and to give a little example, like I I worked at a Walmart in Fairfield, Alabama, right? And when it closed, that was it for the town. And I really mean that. That was a third of their tax money. And someone Google behind me and check if you think I'm lying. That was a third of the tax money. It's over. It's being annexed by the city of Birmingham. They can't pay the police force anymore, incidentally enough. The fire department has gone all volunteer. They can't give them money anymore. And the reason that Walmart closed down, theft was incredible. And violence was incredible. I had to hide from a gunman one of my last days that I was working there. Guy comes running out of the mall shooting at somebody. I had to hide behind some bushes and eventually run away myself. Thank God the police showed up.
Towns actually fail in the U.S. Like, you have like towns that are like, oh, you have no more money. The government just doesn't give them more money.
No, like the larger cities annex them, or they go back to the county or something. Yeah, it falls under a different jurisdiction.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, Wylam was its own city, which is where I'm specifically from. And then Wylam failed in the 80s, and it was annexed by the city of Birmingham. And now it's what's called the Greater City of Birmingham. It's part of
you would never. That just wouldn't happen here. Like, we would just give them money.
Yeah, so Inslee is between us and Birmingham, but it's still functioning as its own city, so it hasn't caved yet. Right, but Fairfield is right up against Inslee, and now it's failed, and it's in the process of being annexed by the Greater City of Birmingham now. And then their police will come in, and their trash service will come in. But Birmingham's collecting so many failed cities, and of course, industry is leaving itself because it's built around a steel mill that the whole thing's gonna fucking cave in, and that'll be the next Detroit right there, or one of them.
Okay, just two more, guys. So this one is also fucking crazy. We want the right to build an African People's Liberation Army. So they're demanding that criminals be released from prison, terrorists be released from prison, and they're also demanding a liberation army. So I guess if you don't release those prisoners and you don't release those terrorists, that this liberation army can come and attack you inside your own countries.
So just hold up a second. Like, so you're basically what we're looking at is a sovereign government within the context of the United States with its own military and its own accessibility to foreign nations for whatever.
Yes.
That's
so
what we're
like
looking
the African people living inside these foreign nations need to be part of this African People's Liberation Army and operate inside another sovereign nation that already has an army. This is why I wanted to talk about it, because it's just
David, in the context where you grew up, is policing and same with you, David, because you live in similar communities. Would have police ever pulled out of a community, like say
no, not where I'm from.
Like Thunder Bay, I'm like thinking like Thunder Bay, small community, just like, seem like
117,000 people, but we have a reservation, or we had a reservation attached to the city that had like 20,000 Ojibways, which is a really big reservation. But you would never see the police just pull out of poor areas. If anything, there's more police presence.
Same in your experience, David?
If I'm not mistaken, the police are provincially, like, the province pays for them, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the cities and then provinces pay for the OP.
Yeah, so it's like, it's literally it's a public. I don't think they have the option to even do that, to pull out. It's just,
yeah. Well, what they've done in Chicago, David, is that, like, because of the shootings of unarmed and armed black folks in the U.S., a lot of protest has been towards the fact that the police is more like an army in the U.S., right? Like, so it's like fucking a police state. So what they've done is they've pulled back. It's not like they've pulled funding. They just don't. The police presence isn't there anymore. Pulled the police presence out. So the money would still be there, but it was an option that they're looking at. But because they've done that, all crime has skyrocketed in those areas that the police presence is gone. Because like I said earlier, like you can have a community, like a police force that works with the community and speaks with the community and does things for the community, but they're not actually social work.
No.
They're police. They're there to stop crime and they're there to solve crime. And when they're gone and the criminals know that they're gone, they're just gonna run amok. And to deny the fact that there's criminals in this area is insane, because we all know that there is. Now, the root cause of the crime, I'm 100% willing and open to be convinced of things that have data. and I'm 100% behind the fact that, that this segment of the population hasn't had a fair shake throughout the history of the U.S. and that, poverty is a driving factor. It's not the only driving factor, but there is, like, when you can't meet your own needs, you're going to find ways to do it, whether vis-a-vis crime, prostitution, drug dealing, what have you. You're going to look for a source of money to feed and clothe yourself. So I'm 100% willing to have that conversation, but I'm not going to deny the fact that those areas have higher than average crime rates within the United States.
And the reason why I asked David about Toronto in particular, because it's one of the largest communities in the country, and
it is the
largest. And there is a lot of gang violence in Toronto in certain areas, and I'm just wondering if it even equates to what they're experiencing in Chicago, in your opinion.
I don't think so. But we have to look at the crime statistics. But...
No, there's not. You don't even have to. There's no point. So Chicago gets more murders than our entire country.
That's sick. That's crazy.
It really does. There's more murders in Chicago than our entire country.
Yeah, I've seen statistics where there's more murder in Chicago than Afghanistan. So war zones so.
The statistic is this: there was more young black men shot in Chicago in a year span than there was U.S. soldiers shot in Afghanistan in that same year span. That's the statistic. Those U.S. soldiers are in a fucking war zone, and you're going to pull the police. And that statistic actually came out before they pulled the police presence. Okay, so I just have one more. I know I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there about that, but I just find it really crazy that they, I could even say that I could even see this if they were like, can we have an all black police presence in our all black neighborhood? I would get behind that. I do find it kind of segregated in the sense because, you wouldn't want in a upper class white neighborhood where you're like, give me only white police officers. That wouldn't sound right. But I understand the difference in the social positions between the two, that you may want to see that, right? So I would rather see that. Not that I think it's ideal, but I would rather see that than to pull police presence back. Okay, on to the last one that I'm going to read. We want the total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African socialist government. Now, I find that very fucking... not offensive, but a very bullshit confidence that Africans want to live under a socialist party. Like you know what I mean? Like there's lots of Africans that don't want to live under socialism.
No, and
so for you to all African countries, fuck you, man.
Yeah, it's pretty presumptuous, as David just said. Yeah, it's pretty
presumptuous that every African country is all of a sudden going to want to be unified under one government and want to be socialist. I fucking doubt that. And South Africans don't really like socialism.
Well, especially in many countries in Africa where they have monarchies. How would that fly in the face of a monarchy? You have some places where people have got to become in power through revolution. So, and not a socialist revolution. So how would that play? There is that seems to be a pie in the sky, utopian dream to want to even try to even go for it.
Okay, and I want to say something here. So that list sounded more like a fucking demand, right? It didn't sound like a platform. It sounded like a demand. Like you have somebody that you can actually demand that from. Don't really have somebody that you can demand that from. It's like not all white people are fucking in control of the government, so you can't expect the country to give into that. But here's the thing that I want to say. Not once did they talk about education. Not once did they talk about healthcare. They never mentioned the healthcare needed in Africa, the education needed in Africa, the healthcare needed in the United States. Food. They didn't speak about any of those things. Nothing at all. Nothing at all about actually helping anybody. They want their own army so that they can try to fight people, because in their platform it didn't necessarily say white supremacy, but if you listen or watch any of the videos in that group, and that they're actually not scared to use violence to get what they want.
Yeah, in fact, that they will support people who use nonviolence, but they think that nonviolence is not the correct path to go, from what I've read, of the larger group. But we do have to take into account, and here's my only caveat, and I will give them a bone at this point. What happened in colonial Africa was wrong. There's a lot of things that happened that raped African of wealth. It has destroyed people through the slave trade, and it has done a lot of damage. However, this is not the colonial times anymore, and things are being done to change that. And I think this whole movement for Pan-Africanism is a pie in the sky thing that will have to be changed over time to actually address the actual needs of the people of Africa. But you know what I mean? I don't see this, as you said, as a method to actually institute real change in Africa.
Or even real change in the poorer neighborhoods in the U.S. Because again, they didn't ask for education and didn't ask for like free university or anything that would actually be useful in getting people out of the situations that they're in. I don't see how a liberation army is going to do any good. So just say that we're like, okay, you can have a liberation army, and the police go into that neighborhood and they try to make a arrest, and this liberation army starts fighting with the police and shooting police. That doesn't help. You know what helps? Education, food, clothes, shelter. Those are the fucking things that help.
Yeah.
Right?
And you've often said specifically, it's not a race issue. It's more of an economic issue. It's a class system issue that needs to be changed. Yes, there are racists. I'm not going to say that there aren't. There are racists that are there, but not to the systemic point that I think that people are being taken political prisoner because of their race. I don't think that's happening in the United States in that context.
At the fundamental end of things, if you look at somebody that's rich and you look at a homeless person, if you have two homeless people and they're black and white, they're in the same situation, and it's nearly impossible to get out of that situation. And if you have a rich person or a rich millionaire that's black and white, they're going to be leading basically the same lives. Now, you're going to have individual people within the society that are going to maybe look at the black person and, because they're a racist, say bad things behind their back, or maybe they're not going to do business dealings with them. But at the end of the day, they're still rich. They're still living in a mansion. They're still eating food. They're still eating nice clothes, where the white homeless person and the black homeless person are in the dirt, hungry. It really is it's a difference in class. Privilege is a difference in class. It's not a difference in your race. True privilege comes with having money.
Yeah.
And power.
Green rules the world.
Yes. I don't know how else to explain it.
You mentioned education, that they're missing the platform. And also I think I'm gonna go liberal here, but environmental policy too. And I think with these supremacist groups and these nationalist groups, like, we're all on the fucking one planet, and if climate goes crazy for everybody, we're all gonna die or drown in some kind of flood or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think education speaks to that aspect of putting us in our place and realizing that, like, we're not on colonies on the moon. Like, we only have one planet, and we need to sort of address our concerns on a global scale, not just think about our borders and our little land and our little country and all that, right?
I think the other thing that education would do would, like, if people were science literate, and I'm speaking on the basic layman term, right? Like if they had the same understanding of it that I have, like, they can understand that we're actually one race. That yes, we started in Africa, but the variancism in the race is due to environmental pressure, diet pressure. It's not actually. We can still have children together, so it's not different races. It's one race with variations within that race. And I think education would teach people that. Like, if you understand the theory of evolution, then you would understand that.
Yeah, I mean, this is just...
And that would stop this supremacy.
Yeah,
like
I mean...
in my mind, or it should.
Yeah, we're all one species. I mean, for fuck's sakes, we have variation in our skin color across the board. No one's 100% white, period. No one's 100% black, period. We all have variation within our DNA sequence. So to get on with this BS that, white people are inferior, or black people are inferior, or Chinese people are inferior, or, is this a crock of crap? It has nothing to do with basis in reality.
Besides we all know that the Asians are best. That's all.
Well, they have the highest IQs. But human beings, for as far out as they've spread across the globe, like, because we've pretty much conquered the globe.
Which is the thing in reality.
Which is what?
No.
But in evolutionary terms, it's actually huge. Because if you look at other species that have gone around the globe, David, by the time they get back around again, they're not even the same species anymore. They're sterile. Their offspring is sterile.
Or they've diverged into a totally different species.
A totally different thing, a totally different species. So it's huge that we've conquered the globe and we're still the same species. And then with globalization and like immigration and stuff, we're able to bring our roots back into our gene pool, from the beginning. So I don't really see one as better than the other. If you want to talk culture, now we're talking, but as far as human beings go, I see everybody having something to offer, every variance of human beings. And that's truly how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely education plays a role.
Plays a role in that, for sure.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't know the things that I know, then I may have a different view completely.
So just one quick question before we go off this topic. Why do you think that their platform didn't include those items and included what they did? Is it because it's based on a philosophical and political ideology?
I think that they're super angry and they just want to fight. That's the way that I look at it. But I don't know. I could be convinced otherwise, though.
I personally see it as like a separatist or segregationist movement. And if you look at all of their requests, that's what it really enables to the max. They want their own community with their own economy and their own people and their own military. And I think that the rest of it is secondary to them. And of course, that's a complete guess. I'm pulling out of my ass, but that's the feeling that I get when I read that list of demands. It all lines up to giving you the ability to tell everyone else to fuck themselves. We got this.
And just one last point. Where does it mean? How far down the bloodline do you need to be considered African at this stage? I
don't think they've thought that through.
No, because in Canadian context, it came down to the Canadian government saying you have to be this much Native American to get status.
15%. Isn't it 15%?
25%, I think, to get full status.
So one quarter, get the status card, which is a racist institution within itself. But okay,
yeah.
I'm having to prove to you that I'm a native Canadian, and how I'm going to prove that is I'm going to have ID that I'm going to carry around, and anytime I buy something, I'm going to show this ID to you that proves that I'm a real native Canadian.
Yeah.
Like, fuck me.
It is. And so, like, that's what
imagine that? They're like, you have to carry this around to prove what, like, and I know I earlier in the show said, like, 10 minutes ago that there's, like, one race, but I'm talking about the distinctions between you have to carry this card around with you to prove that you're actually a Caucasian that was born in Canada. And anytime that you buy something, you have to show this, and anytime that you fill up your car with gas, you have to show this. So fucking racist, man.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what that's the method I was going down. Are they going to do this same type of of concept.
Yeah, they would have to.
Yeah, that's what I mean, to fully have a separatist movement. And I didn't mean to make that sound off-putting, but that it is off-putting to me in some respects that you would have to institute a program like that in particular.
Yeah, you would have to, right? Because it's like, yeah, I don't know how else they would do it.
Yeah,
and then in that sense, so just say they, by some miracle, they're in the election, and it's some like crazy miracle, and they become the leaders of the American government. This is just like, hypothetically speaking. Would we see? I'm not necessarily saying like apartheid as in South African apartheid, but would you then see apartheid of the races again? Would they be like coloreds here, blacks here, whites here?
Would it be outlawed to interbreed?
Or would it be like, because they're saying Africans, would they be like Asians here, Europeans there, Africans there?
Yeah, they probably would.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be. Yeah.
Like, I remember when we talked about South Africa, you had that policy where they weren't allowed to, to have a mixed
it was
marriage.
against the law to intermingle.
Would that come into effect? Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sure it would.
But no. Okay, we're talking about America. I mean, I guess if they get rid of the Constitution, then yeah. But I mean,
what I'm saying, by some miracle that these people.
Okay.
I don't think it would go well for you two toilet seat complected individuals.
No, it wouldn't.
No. A nice wheat colored gentleman like myself might be okay, but I don't think it'd go good for you two whiteys.
Yeah, but I remember that the American country is like 60% white.
Yeah, no. Well, they're not going to take over anyway, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, I know.
No. Come on. We just bit with all of its faults, like anything like that. We just elected Trump, so let's move on.
Yeah. So yeah, it's totally possible.
No. I'm sorry. We had a slight rise in like black nationalist groups, and we had a black president for 8 years, and now we have Donald Trump. That's what I'm saying. It would not happen. It would not happen.
Okay, and we're back from the break, and now we are going to leave North America, and we are going to head over to Europe, Sweden to be exact, where we have a real fucked up case. As you guys know, in the last episode, we talked about the rise of the right in Europe, and when you have one violent political ideology that's rising and wants to take control, the other end of the horseshoe is also going to rise, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, the rise of the radical left, and I mean radical. These we're going to be talking about a group called the Revolutionary Front. I can't pronounce how to say that in Swedish, but they are.
I think nobody speaks Sweden. There's some Romanians and a couple of people from Finland, and yeah. Anyways, go on.
But the Revolutionary Front is an anti-fascist group. On the face, it sounds pretty decent, and that's one of the reasons why they get a lot of passes. I
would say that, like, on the face, they're an anti-fascist group, but they're a violent group.
Well, that's where the problem comes, is that, but they get a lot of passes with university professors. They get a lot of passes from the general public in some respects, because they are fighting fascism, and everybody knows that Europe.
Wait, hang on 1 second. Are you telling me that university professors are giving a group that literally stabs people in the streets a pass because they're anti-fascist?
Yes, they've actually had a university professor.
Does not compute.
Yeah, no, they actually had a university professor defending the Revolutionary Front in the news, and in fact, the journalist had to show them the video of them actually attacking people to get him to change his position. There, he would not believe it.
Yeah, so basically, this group, and it's not just fascists. So anybody that this group deems to be fascist, whether or not you're just a conservative or whatever, some of the things that they do is they They firebomb homes, regardless if people are inside or not. They'll smash out the window and throw in Molotov cocktails. Like I said, they stab people. They beat people. They intimidate people. And this is regardless whether or not you're actually a fascist. This is who they deem fascist.
Yeah, I mean, there was a case not too long ago where a group of the Revolutionary Front attacked 2 migrant workers, believing them to be a fascist because of a symbol that was on the back of their shirt that they purchased from the local football club, and they deemed them as fascists and literally beat the crap out of them. And it was videotaped. You can actually watch them get a chair flicked at them, beaten with stuff, and physically beaten besides that.
Yeah, because immigrants are usually fascist. We all know how that works.
Yeah. So, I mean, like Dave said, it's who they deem to be fascist. I mean, even close associates with people who have fascist opinions, for instance, they are labeled as fascists as well. They could have a totally diverse opinion to the people that they're friends with, but however, they're deemed fascist and they're attacked.
And businesses that may not know that people are fascist but serve fascist people, they're not off of their hit list either. They'll smash in their windows and burn their business down.
There's a often misattributed quote to Churchill that the fascists of the future will call themselves anti-fascists, and even though it's not true, I think it stands, and that's what we're seeing a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. But Ed?
No, I was saying that these guys get a lot of pass. There's even rappers, really well-known rappers in Sweden who
never heard of them. Go on.
They support them. They actually make songs. They actually appeared in his music videos and etc.
Yeah, because so on the front saying like I'm anti-Nazi and I'm gonna fucking fight Nazis sounds good, right?
Yeah,
like it does. But when the vigilante is the one that is deeming who's the Nazi without giving them their day in court, which is like one of the fundamental things of Western society is having your day in court.
Due process, yeah.
Your due process. It's a bunch of bullshit. And these are children, most of them, except for the leaders. I'm like, they're not old enough to make their own decisions. Never mind who's guilty and who's not.
Well, I mean, and the group that they spawned from weren't militant enough. So this Revolutionary Front is more violent and specifically targeting people. I mean, the statistic is 95% of all political crime in Sweden right now is caused by the Revolutionary Front of the left, not the right. Right represents only 5%, which is traditionally not the way it went.
Yeah, and I would like to know this: where is this vitriol going to be thrown if they do manage to squash the fascists within Sweden? Is it going to go to just regular conservative people? Is it going to go to left-wing people that aren't left enough for them? Like, where does it end for this group?
That's a question that I don't want to see answered, because I think you're right. I think the next group would be slightly conservative compared to neo-Nazis.
Yeah, and they move from there because the government in Sweden is not a socialist government. They're a social democracy. So, you know what I mean? Does it go from them to liberals to social democrats until they've finally taken control of the country? And they're also anti-immigrant, are they not, Ed?
No, they claim not. They claim that they are for everybody to have equal rights. So the things that the normal left causes that normal people would attribute to the left, like equal marriage, feminism, all those things you can attribute to the left, to this group. However, they go well above and beyond. The only migrants they do not want to see are people like what we talked from last week, the Golden Dawn and things like that moving through, which is growing bigger across Europe and is entering to Sweden.
I think that this would be like your case study of the beginning of a communist regime.
Yeah, this is a violent revolution. That's what I see it as.
Ed, when you did your research, do they have any other principles underlying? Like, am I wrong? Are they placing? It seems like violence is at the center of their ideology.
Yeah, that's their core mandate. They are taking fascists on head on. They will fight. They say they fight violence with violence, but half the time, well, as they said, 95% of all the violence between the left and the right comes from the left. 95%. So here's case in point. They'll go into an apartment building with people living upstairs above this person or downstairs below this person, and they will throw fire bombs into the house. They with wanton disregard for anybody living else in the community in that building. They could burn down that whole building, and as long as they got the Nazi, that's fine.
When you say 95% of the violence comes from the left, do you mean like in Sweden? Like how big of a circle is that?
Like what he's saying is 95% of the political violence that happens in Sweden.
In Sweden,
is caused by this group.
Okay. I got you. I just wanted to.
They have counterparts in other countries, like but they're not as violent as the Swedish.
So
group.
the Revolutionary Front is a worldwide thing. Like they have it, Cuba, they have it everywhere. But it's just this is the Swedish faction of it. So like they're putting the fact that they're violent like out there like as like it's a good thing. Like they're like, look at us, we're attacking these people, we're destroying businesses, and like fascism really sucks. And we went through this last week. But I mean, you can't attack people because of their political ideology, right? Like you can't physically, or you shouldn't. Not that you can't, you shouldn't, unless they're harming you or they're actually taking shit over. But because you have somebody that you disagree with politically, you can't stab them, and because then you would have the right doing it to liberals, and you would have the liberals doing it to social democrats, and you'd have socialists doing it to Republicans. Politics should be free of them.
I mean, we have a freedom. They have a freedom of speech. They have a freedom to assemble. Some of the most bloody combat that have happened in Sweden in the recent past has been between this group and this group of anti-fascists and a fascist group. It was like sticks, baseball bats, and the police are almost at a standstill because it's like two armies coming together, and the police have to break them up. It's crazy.
Yeah, I just like, I guess, like how we were talking last week, so you have an economic crash in Europe, or in a lot of Europe. You have the migrant march from Africa and the Middle East. So you have your economic crash, you have your boogeyman, the right rises. Because the right rises, the left rises. And you have dark characters within each side, because like no group is free of having bad characters within it, and then you have the stage for them to clash, right?
Yeah, but they're getting a pass by a lot of. Well, I would say that they're getting the pass. Like I said, sorry to interrupt. Like I said earlier, that socialism and communism would get a pass that the fascism wouldn't, because of the fact that it does have an element of caring for your fellow citizen within it, right? So like it's supposed to take care of the population, even though it doesn't work. That's what it's supposed to do. And with some of the more intellectual people, they may be more into the Marxist system than they would into the fascist system. So they would be willing to give that more of a pass than they would fascism. And also the fact that, let's be honest, fascism caused the darkest days in human history, which would be World War II. I'm going to take a sidestep to that. I mean, Stalin literally made Adolf Hitler look mild in comparison. I mean, you're talking.
That's not the narrative.
No, I know that, and that's the problem.
Well, to what you said a moment there, Dave, that on the left it appeals to that desire to protect your own citizen. I would say that the reason both extremes stay around is that they both play on this desire to be a good person or to have a good society, a fair society. They just approach it in different ways. On the left, it's more of an altruistic, you can take from me if you have to make sure these people have. And on the right, you give up personal freedoms in protection of your family and your country and your borders. And I think the thing that makes both of them dangerous is that they have these ultra lofty goals that set you up in a situation where you can believe that possibly the end justifies the means.
Okay.
Which is one of the worst ideas ever in history, and they both play off of that, right? If we do these horrible things, great things will happen.
But when I say to a modern day person, when I say the word fascism, they're going to think of Adolf Hitler, and when I say the word socialist, they're going to think of Bernie Sanders.
Well, I think that's fair in a certain sense, because there's been socialist countries that have worked out. Where's the fascist country where everybody's happy?
Exactly. So,
but then again, where's the communist country where everybody's happy? There's not. So we're not talking about socialism. We're talking about communism in the far left.
No. Right now we're talking about Socialist Party.
You're right. You're right.
Right now we're talking about socialism, specifically fighting against fascism. So,
correct. Sorry.
It's easier for a socialist party to gain traction than it is for a fascist party, because a fascist party brings in more baggage than the socialist party does. And along with that baggage, they bring Hitler.
Right. Fair. I'll concede to that. I will say that here where I'm from, like, you won't get away.
I don't disagree with what you said at all, though.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I agree with it. And it was a good point. And it was a good point.
But
thank you.
To get back to what Dustin was saying just a second ago, when he said the ends justify the means, remember that case that you pointed out, David, about the guy stabbing the neo-Nazi
twice in the back
in
the street.
In his defense, he said, well, that was his defense. He was a Nazi who needed to be stopped. That was his defense. Outside, they had 100 people demonstrating that held banners saying fascism is always a self-defense. That's what they were chanting outside, and that they should release him free of charge.
Oh, when he was in court.
Yeah, this is what happened when he was in court over it.
Yeah, so I would say that any political ideology that peacefully demonstrates within the society that I would like to live in gets a pass. So if you're like fascist or whatever, if you're conducting yourself in a peaceful manner, your ideas should be beaten in the debate forum. And that's an ideal. I understand that that's not how things always work out, but I would like to see people conduct themselves in that manner. Now, if you're a fascist group that goes beyond that line, then I think you have what's coming to you. But from all the reports that I've seen and all the information that I've read and the videos that I've watched, the fascist group is not the violent group. They haven't done any acts of violence.
No, and all they've held rallies in the public square that turned into a nightmare when the Revolutionary Front showed up, but saying that they want a pure race Swedish government back. That's what they want.
That's what I was saying, that they're like anti-immigrant.
But no, that was the fascist group saying that.
That was the fascist.
Okay. And then the Revolutionary Front shows up, and then all hell breaks loose because they're attacking individuals there. What's scary about this, and I'm keep going to hammer this home, is that it gets that free pass, and by not just the average citizen, it gets a free pass by intellectuals that should know better. And
I think all citizens should know better than this.
Yes, but I mean,
it should be a given that you don't stab people in the back when they're not looking at you.
Right. But like we said with the Golden Dawn last week, is when people do good for you, you know, protect you, you feel this sense of obligation towards that group, and you overlook things. But this is not the case. What's happening with these people? Yeah,
I would say the difference is though is like Golden Dawn is like what we saw. Sweden's not as in bad shape as Greece, but we saw those lines of people that were lining up to get the food from the Golden Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
This group in Sweden isn't doing that. They're just attacking people, and their propaganda videos are all violence.
Yeah,
like them
it's awful.
Attacking people, fucking breaking windows, yada yada. Like the cover of their logo is a young guy with a bald head wearing one of those half masks that's like a skeleton. You know what I mean? It's like a half a skeleton face with a young bald guy. That's their logo.
They want to be feared. That's their goal. They don't want they want to drive fascism out and be feared.
I don't think it's just fascism. I just think it's like their political ideology, and it starts with fascism.
But that's the bed they're going to nail their
Because some
post
of the people that they have attacked haven't been fascists.
Right. But I'm saying that's the thing they're going to nail their bed to, because they want to make sure that they have the public sympathy on their side when they're getting into dangerous waters.
Sorry, one other question too, Ed, in your research, did you find any of the economic, like, were there any articles about the economic concerns that the Swedish group has in terms of I'm just trying to try to rationalize or justify their extreme violence. That came out wrong, because I think there's violence.
Trying to understand their violence.
Yeah, understand exactly. Yeah.
Basically, there was there's always been trace of fascism throughout Europe ever since World War II, and the fascists are right now in many places in Europe, as we talked about last week, was they are seeing an increase in immigrants all the way through, and they're saying that basically in Sweden, what they're saying is that they're losing Sweden because of the immigrants. That's what the fascist group. Whereas this left-wing group is saying basically, if you're a neo-Nazi and you support this utopian white Swedish culture, then we're going to attack you. That's their whole motivation. I think it's comes from this place where, I don't know. I think it's just a violent movement just for the thrill of the violence, and not actually trying to do anything positive in the beginning to begin with. In my personal opinion, if I was to look at it that way,
I would say that like Sweden has had their issues with migrants, and whether or not it's true is irrelevant. So there's a lot of propaganda out of Sweden that Sweden is now the rape capital of the Western world, and it's happened ever since the Muslim population has come in. Now, I'm not giving any validity to this. I can't say whether or not it's true, but because of that, the rise of the right happened in Sweden. Okay, that is the direct cause of the rise of not the Revolutionary Front, but the Nordic Resistance, which is a National Socialist Party, which is a right wing. And we'll talk about that next week, just to correlate back to the group that the Revolutionary Front is attacking. That is the direct reason why these people have risen. Islam is the direct reason why the fascist movement is happening in Sweden. The direct cause of this violent socialist group is the rise of the fascism and the right. So I don't want to do causation correlation fallacy, but you have the right rising because of immigrants and the left rising because of the right.
Yeah.
That's what or the violent left rising because of the right. That's what I would say.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
And I would say that they're rising because of the history that Europe has with the right-wing fascists. So if you're a young man and you're looking at what happened to your grandfathers in the past because of Nazis, because of fascism, and you see that happening, and I'm not saying this is right, but you would be like, I'm going to fight that. And if you have a violent person, then they're going to fight it in a physical way.
Yeah.
And do you not notice, and I maybe it's just from my perspective, but when you're looking at these propaganda videos that they pump out, the sheer enjoyment they get out of doing this, it almost seems like a thrill to be doing. It doesn't seem to be like the motivation behind it, or like is more of a thrill-seeking adventure than it is really political, in some respects.
Well, I don't. Yeah, and that was the next point I was going to make, is I don't really see that it's the same cause as their grandfathers and fathers would have had. So it's like kind of like they would have been doing some kind of thing anyways. It was just this in particular that caught a lot of those. Because in the videos that I've watched and having the background that I've had, these are individuals that would have been doing something nefarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're They're that element to begin with. They're hard men. They're not soft people.
I think that's true. But like I said, I think there's also this really nefarious where it manipulates the good in you too. You know, like it's really easy to do bad things when you have justification for doing them right there.
Yes. And I would say for the general population looking at these people, they would see them that they're attacking fascists or Nazis and think, hey, it's a good thing. And that's why, like, those people are getting behind them. But the people that are doing the violence directly, I think they would have been doing that violence in some form or fashion regard.
I can buy that. You know, the whole thing reminds me of a Friedrich Nietzsche quote. You know, he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And I think that's really what's happened to a lot of these groups. And you know, real quick I know you're a Canadian show, but you have a lot of, you know, U.S. audience. If you think that America is immune to this type of anti-fascist movement coming back against, while you guys were talking, it reminded me, and I looked it real quick. On June 27th of last year, there was a fascist rally set up to do some protests outside of Sacramento, and 300 anti-fascist protesters showed up and beat the fuck out of them. Stabbed, you know, like 9 people went to the hospital, got, you know, injured, and some people were stabbed. So it's a pervasive way of thinking.
Yeah, well, and we've seen video come out of since the inauguration.
Oh fuck yeah!
That right wing people have been sucker punched. Their hair, their hats have been ripped off, and like some of the fascists, like alt-right people, have been physically attacked. I'm not saying that I agree with the alt-right at all. I'm just stating the facts that they've been physically sucker punched on.
I don't agree that violence is an answer to words, you know, but that's a different podcast and a different discussion. Yeah.
And it's important. I think this is what David mentioned earlier about the horseshoe. Once one starts to rise, the other one wants to come to meet it.
I call it a horseshoe because fascism and extreme communism do the same thing in the end.
Yeah.
They put a boot on top of their people.
They both end in authoritarianism. Yeah.
Exactly. Totalitarianism and authoritarianism. That's why I call it the horseshoe, because it ends in the same process.
No, yeah.
So you may start up here, and then you go center right, you go liberal, social democrat. Here you go Republican, then you go Tea Party, right wing Christian, and then you go to socialism or democratic socialism. Then you go to fascism and eventually communism.
Yeah.
And the fascism and the communism internationally they may not do the same thing, but nationally they do the same. They're both nationalist parties. They care about their countries only, and they put the boot to the people.
And for those, which is everyone but us four that are listening instead of watching, what Dave just did with his hands here is make a horseshoe. I like to picture the old cartoon magnet that's got like the, you know, it's black and it's got the red tips. And that's where I like to picture it, that down in the bottom you get that crazy authoritarian, you know, dip. But it was just funny to listen to you.
Yeah, because I was doing like a clock. People cannot see me doing the clock stopping.
I've heard it called the scales. I don't think it's quite, but I don't think it's quite the same.
I understand what they mean by the scales, because they're like the right takes it, then the left takes it, then the right takes it, then the left takes it. So the theory behind that, you have the right that's in power, and then it goes too far to the right, and it kind of dips it, and then the left starts to come back and pulls it back the other way. When you have one political ideology that dips the scales too far to one side, the other side corrects it.
And so, do you think that now we've gone far right too much, and now the left is trying to rewrite itself?
No, I think that in those parts they went too far right, and that the left is trying to stabilize. Like, I think in Sweden, because of the implications of what's happening in the Middle East, whether it's propaganda or not, people believe that Sweden now the rape capital of the world. Obviously, it's South Africa, but propaganda is propaganda, and people believe it's Sweden. They believe it's Muslim men doing that. So the right gets to throw out their bullshit and rise up to the top, and then the left comes up and tries to balance out the scales, and that's what happens.
And David, Here's my question to you. Do you think that this could happen in Canada?
Given the age of politics we're in, I wouldn't count anything out. I would say, yeah. What would the benefit of me saying no, it couldn't? Like, I would just expect crazy shit to happen.
Do you think that the regressive left that is coming up, and I mean the regressives, do you think that is is as far as it will go in our country, and then our right will kick in? Or do you think that are we in that same climatic conditions as Europe?
Well, I mean, if the underlying economic conditions end up being,
I'm not sure David agrees with the regressive left in the first place, right? Like, do you agree that there's regressive within the left?
Yeah, especially in the extreme. Like,
you do. Okay,
I think if this party in Sweden is so anti-fascist that they want to use violence instead of ideas to combat the ideology. I think that is the epitome of regression.
Yeah.
I
would agree with that.
Yeah. So I mean, if push comes to shove and that happens in Canada, I mean, I don't see why it couldn't happen if certain situations play out.
Okay, so that brings us to an end of our far left podcast. I do want people to understand that these political ideologies are dangerous. And it's not like it's at your doorstep right now and it's ready to kick it down, but they are out there. And we do need to be careful of the people that we listen to and the ideas that we let in. Because the group in Sweden in particular, that is based on a notion of caring and of left-wing ideology, but they've turned violent. And they're singling their own citizens out. And the reason why they're singling their own citizens out is because they don't agree with them. I think we can all agree today that fascism in the world is not the same as it was in the 1930s and the 1940s. I would say that they're a loud but a small group. Doesn't really wield the power that it once did, because in a Western democracy, we learn history and we know what happened in Germany, and we can suss it out without the use of violence. We don't really need to go into the street and start stabbing people because we're supposed to be an educated group of people. I would rather use words to crush fascism than Molotov cocktails and knives. We have proven in history that we can beat fascism, not into extinction, but in a physical sense, with the greatest military combined force that the world has ever seen. But what we did not do is kill the ideology. The only way to kill the ideology of fascism is through a better ideology. You're not going to beat it with violence. You're going to beat it with discourse and freedom of speech. And that's what I'll say about that.
This was the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Visit our new website at waywardatheists.com. Follow us on Spreaker, spreaker.com/waywardatheists. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at waywardatheists and on facebook.com/waywardatheists. If you enjoy our content, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes, and feel free to support us at patreon.com/waywardatheists.